Welcome back. I'm Mary Nightingale. This is Eclipse 99 on Discovery. Just a few minutes to go before the eclipse begins. Our expert, Dr. Joe McAvoy, is standing by. And at Alderney, we have our reporter, Tim Grundy. What's happening, Tim?
So it's really very exciting now. There's 8,000 people, all of them staring up to the sky, holding their special goggles to their eyes, and strangely enough, smiling. I don't know, there's something really magical about it. Everybody's laughing, there's spontaneous cheering going on around the fort, and we've got our special sun camera, and we've got some lovely, lovely pictures of the sun at the moment. She's burning through absolutely beautifully, and like I say, you can't look at it without smiling.
Fantastic. We're back after the break when America joins us. Bye-bye.
Discovery Eclipse 99 brings you the most comprehensive eclipse coverage on TV. Today on Discovery.
Does your car identify you? If your car is a new Mitsubishi Charisma, it does. Its direct injection petrol engine gives you better performance, greater economy and fewer emissions. Now that's something you don't see every day. The new Mitsubishi Charisma.
Now you could cut the cost of buying a brand new fitted kitchen by calling Kitchens Direct. Kitchens Direct aims to give you extra value and extra savings because it has no showrooms and no middlemen. Instead, you deal direct with an expert team of designers, fitters and highly skilled craftsmen to give you a complete kitchen service at an amazing price. So call Kitchens Direct now on 0800 123 321 to arrange an appointment and take advantage of our free no-obligation design service. Call right now on 0800 123 321. Kitchens Direct. Why pay more than you have to?
For competitive car insurance, call 0800 056 5000. 0800 056 5000. Hillhouse Hammond. Human, helpful, and here.
There's a new Grattan catalogue. To receive your copy, call 0800 771 772. You'll receive £15 off your first order. And even next day delivery. So share in the fashions of the new autumn-winter season. Call 0800 771 772 now.
I'd like to show you something really clever from Byleda, the new Byleda Super Mop with a special area for cleaning.
Hey, and a separate one for drying.
The top's reinforced with microfiber so clean. Look, even really stubborn dirt. See how it lifts up the dirt?
And the lower part is really absorbent to dry quickly.
The new Byleda Super Mop with double action now cleans even better.
To arrange an appointment and take advantage of our free no-obligation design service, call Kitchens Direct now on 0800 123 321.
Good morning, America. I'm Mary Nightingale. It's 6 a.m. on the East Coast, and on the West Coast, it's very early indeed, just 3 in the morning. Here in London, meanwhile, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. You join us for a very special Discovery programme, Eclipse 99. Over the next 3 hours, we'll be bringing you live, unrivaled coverage and scientific analysis of the last total solar eclipse of the century. Physicist Dr. Joe McAvoy, our eclipse expert, is with me in the studio, and in the English Channel on an ancient fort on the tiny island of Alderney is our eclipse reporter Tim Grundy. Tim, set the scene for us.
Well, for the American viewers, Alderney is a tiny island that lies between England and France in the Channel Islands. It's just 3.5 miles by 1.5 miles. Its normal population is 2,500. That has grown today to 8,000. On the fort here, which is Fort Albert, opened by Queen Victoria, 500 astronomers have come up to the fort, and there are 80 members of the media, all taking photographs of the sun above us. We are almost within totality. At 11 minutes past, we should have totality, and a very, very special moment. We have our special sun camera, which is trying to track the sun as much as it possibly can. And down in the harbour, 350 boats. You occasionally get these squeals of joy, people partying on the boats bobbing around in the harbour below, and also spontaneous rounds of applause from the fort here. Everybody just having a great time and smiling and wondering about how tremendous this moment is.
Thank you very much indeed, Tim. We'll be coming back to you regularly over the next hour or so, but for the time being, leave you to your eclipse, which is growing all the time. So let's have a look, before we go any further, at exactly where today's eclipse can be seen. This is the route that it will take. We'll be following the shadow of the moon as it goes over Cornwall in the southwestern corner of England, across Alderney in the Channel Islands, over France, Germany, Romania, then Iran, until finally, after crossing the sunset line in India, it dies away in the Bay of Bengal. Now, remember, this is your show as well. We have Professor Joe McAvoy, Dr. Joe McAvoy, I should say, in the studio with me to answer all your questions and queries, and this is how you can contact us, and we really hope that you will. Our email address is eclipse@discovery-europe.com, and our fax number is 0171 430 4930 if you're in the UK. If you're faxing from overseas, then remember the number is 0044 171 430 4930. We're just 8 minutes away from the total eclipse in Cornwall, so let's go straight to our cameras in Cornwall. I think we've got cameras on Bodmin Moor, which is right in the centre of the county. Now, it's actually a little bit cloudy at the moment, which is a great shame. Only 3 minutes ago, that was really quite visible. It's disappointing, isn't it, Joe? It's gone. It's gone.
Can't believe it.
I know, but then you can see the shadow of it just coming round the corner
right
again.
Here.
But don't panic if you're watching, because we will have other sources of pictures. I think we can actually bring you pictures from Alderney and the Channel Islands. So we have those pictures now that we can go to and have a look at that and see how those pictures are coming on. We'll be coming to those shortly. I'll tell you what we'll do, Joe. In the meantime, let's deal with some emails.
All right.
Because we've had quite a lot of them. We've had lots of emails from American viewers asking if they will be able to view the eclipse from the States. The answer is?
The answer is no.
Right.
It doesn't. It starts somewhere near Nova Scotia in the Atlantic and then moves easterly across into Europe. So not this time for the U.S.
All right.
The next eclipse in the U.S. won't be until the year 2017, when a total eclipse will pass right across the whole continent.
Okay. Tony Bellamy from Kettering in the UK says, why do the times of totality vary from location to location?
Well, that's a little bit of physics involved, because what is happening is that the Earth is spinning and the shadow of the moon hits the Earth at different angles. Now, as it moves across to the meridian, when the shadow of the moon is perpendicular to the Earth, that's when the speed of the rotation of the Earth is a maximum. Now, the speed of rotation moves in the same direction as the shadow. So if you're at a place where the rotation is faster, then you're going to be in the shadow longer. And that's what happens. And then it moves. And in fact, I think that particular maximum eclipse occurs in Bucharest on this particular eclipse.
Joe, look, we've got a great shot in Alderney from the Channel Islands where Tim is.
Nice.
Look at that. It really is advancing at an extraordinary speed, isn't it?
Yes. It's only about 6 minutes to go or so before totality.
Do you think they're going to be able to see the corona in conditions
Well,
like this?
I must say that looking at this tells me that probably not the corona, because you might see the Bailey's beads, the edge phenomena, and also the diamond ring effect. But the corona is such a faint image, and so it's a ghostly image, the atmosphere of the sun. You do need quite clear skies in order to see it. It's a pity, but at least we're seeing something.
And look, it's just emerging and it's disappearing again. Now, let me just reassure you, if you are actually watching at home, we will be bringing you some pictures from an RAF Hercules plane, which will be above the cloud level. So even if it's cloudy here in the UK, even if we can't see anything from the ground we will be able to see it from above the cloud level. Now, you're watching Eclipse 99 on the Discovery Channel. Our viewers in America will now take a short break, but when they rejoin us, we will be just moments away from the first total eclipse in Cornwall. Meanwhile, our viewers in Europe are still with us, so let's take a swift recap on how you watch the eclipse safely. Now, the basic rule is absolutely clear. Do not risk your sight. Joe, not long to go. What tips can you give us?
Well, of course, we've said a lot about pinhole cameras, and that's the best way to do it. The key thing is to look at a projected image, if at all possible. A projected image means that the radiation from the sun, the damaging radiation, which is infrared and ultraviolet, is not going directly into the eye. It's going onto a screen in which you can look at it. That's one way. Now, the glasses that are approved and have the stamp on them, the CE stamp, they're quite safe to use as long as they're not scratched. And
You've got some of them there beside you, haven't you?
Oh, yes, indeed. I'll just demonstrate. You should view the eclipse by putting the glasses on when you're turned away from the sun, then slowly turn around and look. I see a light right up there. It looks very much like the sun. And no longer than 3 minutes at a time, and you should be okay.
Okay, good stuff. We've got some more pictures from Alderney now. And I think we've actually also got some pictures of the people watching the eclipse itself, which is almost as exciting as seeing the thing, because you can see the excitement there. They're all absolutely riveted to it. It's extraordinary, isn't it? What is it like? I mean, you've seen these eclipses, haven't you?
Yes, I saw one in Mexico, and it is something that just takes people by the neck. I mean, you just get transfixed, and you think that it's amazing that all these predictions are so accurate that you can set your watch by the time of the eclipse. We were just outside and see people running out of the office buildings right here by like Big Ben and looking at the eclipse, and they look very excited. It's a phenomenal thing, really.
Well, look, we've got pictures from the Hercules jet, as promised. Oh, it's just disappeared off the screen. The cameraman has obviously got so excited by what he's seen. It's actually quite a tricky thing because they have to hold the camera very, very, very steady. They are on an aircraft.
A lot of vibration in a plane, sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. But what you were saying about the excitement brewing outside, we both of us stepped outside the door, didn't we? We've been stuck in a studio since 6 o'clock this morning.
Right.
And I think we were both almost forgetting, in a sense, what it was about. It was about what's happening out there.
That's right.
And to see it firsthand really was extraordinary.
Well, what strikes me is the way that people can be so blasé about scientific things, and yet when something like this happens, and you see the crowds right out in the park, right along the Thames, we're right by the Thames, looking through viewers, looking through pinhole cameras with telescopes, and just a lot of excitement in their face that they're witnessing something which is so rare and so unusual, right in the centre of London.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I like about it is that we've become quite cynical through the media. You know, it's not going to happen. It's going to be cloudy. It's going to be too crowded. Whatever. And yet you walk outside the door and everyone is transfixed.
Exactly. They're excited, and we're still hopeful that you know, the cloud cover can change so drastically. Actually, during the time of the eclipse, even if we can't see the corona at the beginning of the eclipse, there is a strong possibility that it just might clear during that 2 minutes of totality because there's such strong temperature changes and things going on in the atmosphere. And if the clouds are thin like that, they may just vaporize, and you might just see the corona, which would be a real treat.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Amazing stuff. Welcome back to our viewers in the United States. You're watching Eclipse 99 on the Discovery Channel. We're covering live the last total solar eclipse of the century. Straight to our cameras on the Hercules plane. Now, I can tell you about these pictures. They're above the cloud level, which is what's significant. Over the UK at the moment, there is, in certain areas, quite a thick layer of cloud, which is obscuring the view from the ground. However, these pictures are coming from an RAF Hercules above that cloud level. One of ITN's most experienced cameramen, that's Independent Television News' most experienced cameraman, Eugene Campbell, is actually on board filming these remarkable shots. They have to fly incredibly carefully to make sure the camera is steady enough to actually capture the eclipse. And look at that, Joe. It's almost reaching totality.
Not bad. He's doing quite a good job of keeping that image fairly constant in the screen.
Well, we can go to Alderney as well. I think we see the pictures from the ground in Alderney. And we can see those. They'll be coming in just a moment or two. It's a little bit fainter and a little bit further behind. It's obviously further across, and there's a big black cloud.
But the image is larger, and of course it's more steady, so we can see a good bit of the sun, the slither of the sun there.
What's going to happen next, Joe?
Well, as the moon moves across, we have what we call second contact. First contact is when the two disks just touch for the first time, as seen from the Earth. But when the disk reaches the edge, you will have this edge phenomenon. And it's called Bailey's beads, in which the beads will run around the edge of the the disk, and this is caused, believe it or not, by the last bit of sunlight traversing the edge of the moon through the mountains, through the valleys on the mountains of the moon. And that's why the light breaks up.
Extraordinary.
And it was first discovered in 1836.
So those mountains and valleys must be pretty huge.
They are, yes indeed. And then right after that you have, when one blob of light is left, it looks like a diamond ring. And we should see those effects even at this visibility. The diamond ring effect, when there's just one bit of light on the edge and you can still see the ring, it looks just like a...
All right, now we're going to go back to the Hercules plane. We're going to be seeing the pictures, and there it is. There it is, totality.
Wow.
For the first time, Joe.
Wow.
Tell us what you think.
Beautiful. I mean, look at the corona. The corona is quite uniform compared to the one I saw in Mexico. So this is telling astronomers and physicists something important about the sun cycle, what's going on inside the sun, because the only way you can really measure this is during an eclipse. And you have lovely symmetry of the corona, and it's a wonderful thing. Look, you can see the pink. Those are prominences. These are large quantities of gas floating off the surface of the sun at very high temperatures, hydrogen ions, and they are pink because of their ionized hydrogen atoms, which are ionized. And with a long focal length telescope, it's a wonderful view to actually focus in on the prominences at the surface. Wonderful view. I just hope that they get a shot of that on the ground.
Yeah, I hope so too, and it will be happening very shortly in Alderney, I think, because, I mean, there was just a little sliver there, so I think we can return to Alderney and see our live pictures from the ground there. Now, we're hoping, of course, that there will not be a large cloud cover, and there it is. Almost, it's coming and it's going.
So that means that the Hercules must be flying further west.
Exactly.
And the eclipse the shadow of the moon has reached the plane before it has to touch the mainland out over the North Atlantic. Don't forget the Concorde is also flying within the shadow, and they get an extended some 10 or 11 minutes. Only costs you 1,500 quid.
There it is. That's ghostly. Now we can actually see it's getting dark on the ground in Alderney, and we can see the pictures of the people who are actually watching in Alderney, and there they are. It is getting dusky there, Joe, isn't it? It really is.
It looks like you got blue sky off in the horizon, so it can't be a heavily overcast sky in Alderney. There could be a chance that something big will happen in 2 minutes of totality.
You saw an eclipse for yourself when you were in Baja, California. Right. Describe the emotions that you go through on seeing your first eclipse. What will these people be experiencing?
Ah, the diamond ring effect. There it is. We already missed the beads, but that was from the Hercules apparently.
And here we've got from Alderney.
We still have totality. Has not been reached yet in Alderney. It looks like it's got a couple of minutes yet. I have 11:14. That doesn't make sense. It was going to be 11:11. Totality.
It's going to be a little bit later. Right, we'll go back to the Hercules because we can see that. We're going to come back to Alderney in time to see totality.
Yes.
Do not worry, viewer, if you're concerned that we're going to miss it, because we will not. Here we have the Hercules, and it's moving off the other side now. Is that right? Is that right? What is happening from the Hercules plane?
I don't know. It looks like the moon has already gone to third contact.
And it has
2 minutes to went by at that time?
I think it was.
See, it's a very short totality compared to the one I saw in Mexico. You had 6 minutes and 36 seconds. So you've got to look quickly at this particular eclipse, because the moon moves across the disk of the sun in only 2 minutes and 6 seconds.
Let's go back to Alderney then without any delay, because we don't want to miss totality there. Now, it is slightly obscured by cloud, as we can see, but we've just about got it. So next we will see Bailey's beads. Is that
Bailey's
right?
beads, right, and then that's followed by the diamond ring effect, which we just got a glimpse of, by the way, when they were back to the Hercules camera for a split second. You saw what happened. You had this one flare of light and the circle around, obviously why it's called the diamond ring effect.
It's agonizing watching this. Look at these clouds coming over.
Yes,
if you were on the ground, you would be holding your breath.
Oh, my.
And look at the ground in Alderney. It is almost
terrible.
Completely dark.
Yeah, this looks like
listen to them shrieking.
Yeah, here, this might look like Bailey's beads.
There it goes.
There you go. You get the effect of the light breaking up, and it looks like the sun is also disappearing behind the clouds.
Oh, no, it's agonizing.
Couldn't be worse.
It's agonizing. The moment of totality.
Anyway, they're still cheering. They're
Can
still
you hear
cheering.
them,
Yes.
I mean, talk us through what it's like. In fact, let's go over to Tim Grundy in Alderney right now. I don't know whether he can hear us. Tim, what's happening over there?
I can hear you, yes. You certainly won't see me because it's gone pitch black. It is absolutely remarkable. Everybody cheering, flash bulbs going off all around me. I've no idea what they're taking pictures of because they can't possibly see anything, but everybody jumping up and down. We've got musicians ready to play. The way that it just disappeared in the sky, it was almost beyond belief. Everybody was staring at it, and you can't describe the way all this energy was just sapping away in front of you. I'm watching on a, yeah. Can you see all of the flashlights going?
I saw
Can
the
you see that?
flashlights. It's extraordinary. But Tim, I mean,
they are taking pictures of darkness. It's really, really strange. I mean, but then again, here we are. It's what, 15 minutes past 11. It is pitch black, and more cheering going on. I'm looking up to the sky. Ah, there you go, a complete ring around. You can see the corona around the sun. That is remarkable. Everybody is cheering and clapping. This is even through the sky. And of course, remember that at this stage, it is possible with the temperature getting lower that the sun could actually start, what's left of the sun could start to burn through this sky. But we're not really sure whether it's going to achieve that. That in itself is a remarkable, remarkable view.
Oh, Tim, we will come back to you as and when you get some more light. Oh, look!
Can you, yes, look at that. Wow, it's coming through on the other side now. Yeah. It's going to suddenly get brighter and brighter. We all need to get our protective goggles ready again as it starts to come out. There's a band in front of me just starting to welcome the sun as it comes back to Earth. This particular part of Earth anyway. It's getting lighter and lighter. A giant light bulb in the sky that is slowly, like on a giant dimmer switch, is slowly being turned up and up. I can now see the harbour again. The beach is coming back into view. That's just a whole day, 24 hours in 2 minutes.
And there you are.
Absolutely remarkable. You can see me now, can you? I'm back. That's just one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen. It just went out like that and very slowly come back up. The band has welcomed it back. Ladies and gentlemen, the sun on planet Earth.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much indeed, Tim. We will return to you a little bit later to get your reflections on what you've just seen, but for the time being, thank you very much indeed. Joe, what do you think?
It was incredible because, you know, just as it went total, it seemed like there was an additional cloud cover which enhanced the darkness, and it must have been a dramatic effect. I mean, under a normal clear sky, it doesn't get quite that dark. So they had an enhanced fall into darkness, you might say, which must have shocked them completely. It's wonderful.
So it was, in a way, it was a trade-off. They didn't get to see the corona so clearly, but...
No, that's true.
Oh, look, let's go back to Albany. Look at that. Now, I don't know if we can hear Tim, but the pictures there are extraordinary.
Well, yes, actually, I'm looking at the monitor from our special sun camera, and so the pictures you're seeing I can also see. They are quite remarkable. Of course, there are thousands, literally thousands of cameras here. There are some people recording it for scientific reasons. How much they'll get in terms of information, we don't know, because it's not been the best of days. But out of the 500 experts that we have here, scientists that have been brought in, about 80% of them have just done exactly what I've done, and that's witnessed their first ever total eclipse of the sun. And a lot of them are just recording it for their own enjoyment. And why not? What a sensational experience. And again, down in the harbour, fortunately the wind blowing the right way so that all the boats in the harbour have turned to face the sun, almost praying towards this marvellous thing up in the sky. And we can clearly see it coming out of the other side now.
Tim, can I ask you,
the second.
Are you now converted to a converted Umbrophile?
Yeah, well, yes, I'm thinking of taking up paganism or becoming a druid or something similar. I've actually, you know, history is something that I specialise in, and I've always understood why ancient man was so moved by the sun, because obviously it is life, it is death. But ancient man seeing that, how would they have got their head around that? How would they have explained that? It's quite obvious why they would start setting up stone circles to it to commemorate it every 330 years or whatever. And also exactly the same with the moon. So now that just reaffirms everything I've always believed. It's an incredible power, and when you experience it at its greatest moment like that, then you can do nothing else but be totally moved.
All right, Tim, we're going to be coming back to you later. I'm sure there'll be lots more to talk about. For the time being, thank you. Now, as we've been watching the eclipses, it is a really quite magical experience, but we can also learn a great deal from it. An eclipse gives scientists the perfect opportunity to discover much more about the nature of the sun itself. One thing that's baffled them is why the atmosphere of the sun, which is called the corona, is so much hotter than the actual surface. Well, Professor Ken Phillips, a scientist working near Oxford in England, hopes to find the answer. He's developed an experiment called SECIS, or Solar Corona Imaging System. Before he set off for Bulgaria, where he is at this moment waiting for the eclipse to arrive, Professor Phillips explains how it works.
The sun has a secret, a puzzle that science has been trying to solve for 50 years. There's something about the sun's atmosphere, the corona, which doesn't make sense. The same atmosphere that directly affects the Earth. And scientists at the Rutherford Appleton Laboratory believe that the moon could be the key to unlock a great solar mystery.
An eclipse of the sun, the total eclipse of the sun, is a very special event because the moon blots out the bright disk of the sun's photosphere as it's called, and allows us to see the sun's corona, which is quite a delicate feature. It's not very bright, and it can't be seen under any other conditions, even when the sun is partially eclipsed. The corona is mysterious because the sun's surface layers are at a temperature of 6,000 degrees absolute, but the corona has a temperature of more like 1 million degrees absolute, so it's much, much hotter than the surface layers of the sun. There are several theories, in fact 2 major theories as to why the corona is so hot. They both have to do with the magnetic field of the sun, which is not very strong. However, it's strong enough to produce the energy to heat up the corona to this extraordinary temperature. The SECIS instrument is something that we've built and put together over the past couple of years. Its intention is to see whether one of these 2 theories that is designed to explain the heating of the corona, whether it is correct. We'll be taking the SECIS instrument out to Bulgaria. The reason for doing that is that Bulgaria has a slightly higher chance of seeing the eclipse than, for example, Western Europe, e.g. Cornwall or France. This is the SECIS instrument. There will be a tracking mirror that will direct rays of light from the eclipsed sun into this telescope here, horizontally mounted, and the rays of light from the corona will pass through these various lenses and filters to one of 2 CCD cameras, electronic cameras. This beam splitter here splits the radiation into these 2 paths. The reason for having 2 cameras is that one can act as control. It will look at the atmospheric radiation varying because of clouds and mist and that sort of thing in the Earth's atmosphere, while this one is recording the coronal radiation itself.
So by filming the corona during the eclipse, could SECIS finally explain the mystery of its high temperatures?
SECIS instrument will certainly help to understand why the corona is so hot. We may not have the complete answer, because some of the answers will be provided by spacecraft instruments which are flying at the present time. The material that we gather, the data we gather, are in the form of images, thousands of images in fact, over the course of the 2-minute long duration of the eclipse, and we'll be constructing movies and examining different parts of the solar corona to see whether it shows modulations of the type that we expect to see.
Professor Ken Phillips, scientist working near Oxford with the SECIS scheme. Now, I'm joined in the studio by Dr. Nick Kendrew, who specialises in the safety of watching the eclipse, and obviously Dr. Joe McAvoy is still with me. Now, let's talk about the aspect of safety with watching this. I mean, we've seen the excitement and the kind of overwhelming joy that comes over people when they see these things. Is there a risk that people might forget all the caution, throw it to the wind and just look straight at the thing?
Well, that's the worry, you see, and that's why people have to be very careful, and that's why the government have said that the safest method is to use the pinhole camera, because you don't look directly at the sun.
Right.
But the thing is that people, there's always a temptation that people would look directly at the sun if they're using the pinhole camera. So that's why, I mean, the government have said that these viewers, even if they have got a CE mark, that they're not safe to use. However, the manufacturers have said that there's never been a case of anybody using them correctly where they've damaged their eyes. So it's up to the viewer themselves to make their decision. But when used correctly, and the manufacturers claim that these are absolutely fine.
All right, explain to us exactly how a pinhole camera works, would you?
Well, this is one that's made out of a mailing tube, a piece of aluminium foil on the end with a small hole in the center, and the smaller, the sharper the image will be, and a white card at the other end. And I've cut a little notch in here so that when you hold it up to the sun, you'll get an image on the card, and you'll be able to look inside and see it in complete safety, and this will block out much of the stray light, so you get a fairly good contrasty image to view. And there is no tendency, as Nick pointed out, there's no tendency to look through it incorrectly because it's sealed off at both ends, so there's no danger in using this kind of indicator. We just had it outside, right next to Big Ben. Nick and I were looking at the wonderful image on this tube.
I mean, it is worth pointing out that even though we're not going to see totality here in London, it was remarkably dramatic. To just look into the sky above Big Ben, see that famous skyline.
Viewers,
of course, all the pinhole cameras, and to see it, you know, it's an overwhelming event in a sense, isn't it?
It certainly is, and I think the fact that it's only 97% here, you can still see that the light falling and people are getting very excited. But at the end of the day, you have to be quite serious about it and make sure that people are using the viewers or the pinhole camera.
All right. Well, stay with us. Don't go away, Nick, because we're going to return to Alderney just for a few minutes to our reporter, Tim Grundy, who's there right now. What's the latest, Tim? What's happening? I think we're going to actually have to go back to Tim in a couple of minutes. The excitement has overtaken him. We've had a lot of extraordinary emails on the issue of safety. One person emailed us and said, is it okay to spray paint a section of perspex and look at the sun that way? Is that safe or not?
Basically, we come back to the whole thing again, is that the fact that you should not use anything that hasn't been specifically designed for looking at the sun, and spraying perspex isn't going to save your eyesight.
All right. Equally, the CD you have on the desk before you.
As we talked about earlier, this is one of the things that people have talked about this time round in this country about thinking it's safe to look at because it's silver. Oh no, don't use it because you will lose your eyesight. I should think it's just not the thing to do.
All right. Okay. So caution at all times.
Yes.
Even amid all that excitement. I think we can now go to Tim Grundy in Alderney. I think he's all straight and ready for us. Tim, over to you. What's the latest?
Well, I've got Raymond Butt with me, who's a retired physics teacher, who's just been standing behind me doing exactly what we're doing, really, filming the eclipse. What was your reaction, Ray?
Well, my reaction was it was pretty spectacular. One would have wished for less crowd, but nevertheless, even so, it was something well worth coming to see.
Is that your first eclipse?
It's my first, and fortunately, it'll probably be my last.
Did you? I mean, it was when the light just went out. That was just a moment of total excitement.
Magic, and particularly during the middle of the day. You know, it's just so contrary to what one expects.
Is there anything that you're going to be doing with your film, or is it just for personal pleasure?
Well, it's really just for personal pleasure, I guess. Yes, yes.
Is it a shame for the scientists here today that they didn't get to see more of the corona?
Well, we would have really loved to have seen the corona, of course. That's really what we come here to see, the scientific community, yes. It's not really the going dark. It really is this wonderful corona. And of course, you also see the magnetic field lines of the sun in the corona as well.
And I know that at your conference over in Guernsey, there was talk about the corona perhaps being responsible for some of the global warming that's happened this century.
Well, it certainly is responsible, or rather the solar wind, which emanates from the corona, is responsible for a lot of the terrestrial effects that we get, yes, yes.
But as we've just been hearing on the programme, nobody truly understands it.
Well, I think there are many theories about what the interaction between the sun and the earth is, as there are people thinking about it. Which is quite a lot.
All right, but you've had a good time.
But we've had a good time, yes. This is what we came to see, and we've seen it, and I think most people go away happy.
Okay, Raymond, thank you very much indeed. Back to you, Mary.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks very much indeed, Tim. I think we can now get live pictures from Germany. We can go live to Stuttgart and see what is going on there. Now, let's see what the weather conditions are like. It's extremely dark, I think, is what we can say. What do you reckon, Joe? It looks like the middle of the night.
Oh, this must be the same effect. You have this, the totality, and then dense cloud cover as well, so it gets very, very dark. I mean, we're just seeing, I mean, that looks like a ground shot, actually, Mary.
That's a ground shot, yeah. We're seeing the side of a building there. Presumably it's so cloudy we can't actually see the sun. You know, I mean, whatever anyone says, and this is a very dramatic event, it is disappointing, isn't it, that the cloud is there? There's no getting away from it.
I mean, we look through history, as I outlined in the book, that there are times when massive expeditions were taken to places as far away as India to do some experiments for 2 or 3 minutes and find out that it's completely clouded out. There's one character named Jules Janssen, a Frenchman, who was in Paris during the Prussian War, and he actually flew out of Paris in a balloon in order to escape the siege, in order to go to North Africa, in Algeria, for an eclipse, and it was clouded out. Now that's frustration.
And what was the tale you told me about some Japanese explorers who went and a volcano erupted at the very last minute.
Exactly, yes. The volcano erupted just as totality was about to happen, and the fumes and so forth from the volcano completely obscured the view.
And here we are in Stuttgart, and there at last.
It's more or less the same as Albany, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks very similar. There's got to be one perfectly clear spot as we go across the continent. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Well, what do you think will be the best place to see the eclipse from? And what's the optimum possible viewing place, do you think?
Well, the reports that were put out by NASA that were on the internet showed a graph of the probability as it went across the continent. And when you get beyond Romania into Turkey, the probability goes up to 65–70%.
There you can see the path of the eclipse. We've already seen Cornwall, we've seen Albany, France, Germany, we've just seen there in Stuttgart, Romania, Iran, Turkey obviously in the middle there, and India where it disappeared.
Iran has a very high probability of a clear sky, about 95%, but a little dodgy.
Of course, of course. Have you ever seen an eclipse, Nick?
I have. I was lucky enough to go to, there was an eclipse in the Caribbean in February '98, and I was there, and it is phenomenal. It is absolutely amazing to stand there and just look at the corona. You feel so small. It's the most amazing thing I've probably ever seen.
It does seem to capture people's imaginations in a way, I think, that's taken all of us by surprise, in a sense.
Well, it's amazing to watch a group of people looking at an eclipse because the emotion, the surge of emotion that you get during totality is something that you just can't or create on screen. It's very difficult to do that. And to look at people cheering, and people cry. They actually cry. And you think they're being dramatic, but they're not. It's one of the most amazing things you can see.
A sort of cathartic feeling in a way. We were also talking about the effect on animals, and I think it actually is going to have quite a profound effect on birds and other creatures. Is that true?
Well, I've heard, because I did some research when I went to the eclipse in the Caribbean, and it said that birds stopped singing, and something about whales as well, Joe.
They lose their orientation, apparently. Their navigating ability in the water. And same thing with elephants in Africa as well, wandering around, not knowing where to go during the eclipse because they get so disoriented by this cosmic change in the order of things. So it's a very strong effect on animals. They're doing these experiments at the zoo. Probably even during this, even though this was, you couldn't see the corona, the effect of the eclipse will still have this strong effect on animals.
The tale you told me earlier on about the cows in Costa Rica really captured my imagination.
This isn't just in 1976. There was an eclipse that went to Costa Rica, and somebody there was interested in the effect on animals and doing various kinds of observations. And he saw a herd of cows grazing, and just before the eclipse occurred, before totality, they just went into a queue and marched into the barn, like it was the end of the day. And, you know, they were convinced that it was time to just retire for the night.
Amazing, amazing stuff. Well, the eclipse is now crossing Europe, and we hope to pick it up again very soon in Germany and a little bit further on as well, of course, in Turkey and so on. But for some people, the eclipse is very much like a drug. You've heard what Nick said, you've heard what Joe said. They simply can't get enough of it. They are known as the eclipse chasers, and they will travel absolutely anywhere, personally, to experience those fleeting moments when the disk of the moon totally covers the sun. Chris Katsiavriadis is one of them. He's just seen his 7th eclipse.
There was an unusual storm over Java. It had been cloudy and raining. I was woken up by some people dancing on the balcony of my hotel room. I went outside and there was 2 Dutch guys from the next room, and they were dancing because the sky was clearing and we knew we were going to see the eclipse. Ever since I was 10, I had wanted to see a total eclipse of the sun, and now seen 6. I've been to the Philippines, I've been to India, I've been to Chile, Venezuela, and often I like to get there a week or so before the eclipse to feel the atmosphere building up. In India, as totality approached, we saw a dog running back towards the village, terrified with its tail between its legs, looking like the devil was chasing it. You could see the black shadow coming across the sea, hear a murmur in the atmosphere. Children stopped playing in the sea and just clung to their parents. They knew something was going to happen. It's almost like the end of the world is approaching. There's no point in seeing an eclipse if it's 99%. That's just not good enough. It's like going to see Pavarotti in Milan and then sitting outside the opera house. It's only during totality that the moon completely covers the sun. The shadow envelops you, and the corona appears. The hairs on the back of the neck start to tingle. The temperature has dropped, the wind has dropped. It's like time itself has stopped. You look up
there, in the moon's shadow, sharing this moment with a few people. It's a humbling experience. And it's a healthy thing to feel humbled by nature.
Now, let's talk about some emails. You can keep in touch with us by email. Our address is eclipse@discovery-europe.com. So do keep those emails coming because we are fascinated. We've got the experts here to deal with them. This is an interesting one. Kathy from Virginia. Joe, I saw, she says, a total eclipse in Virginia in the late 60s. The thing I remember most is the ripple effect as the ground seemed to move. Have you seen that?
Well, actually at the eclipse in Mexico, I was looking for these. They're called shadow bands. And just as the shadow moves past at the beginning of the totality at the particular spot where you're viewing from, you get an interference effect, and you get black and white bands. I didn't see it. And I think partly that is when you have a very clear sky, the edge phenomena of the moving shadow is difficult to observe. Now, they might have seen shadow bands and actually the moving of the shadow much clearer on a day like today in Cornwall and Albany than on a perfectly clear day. But it's a pronounced effect, apparently, but I've never seen it.
Did you see it in the West Indies when you were there?
I didn't actually see it as such, but we were out there upstairs a few minutes ago, and we didn't see the ripples, but you saw all the shadows were much more defined than they normally would be. It was quite astounding.
It is extraordinary. I mean, there must be a part of you, Joe, that is thinking, what on earth am I doing in the studio activity out there? I mean, let's be honest about this.
Well, probably I would have gone to the continent, and, you know, there's some eclipse chasers. They have this amazing thing. They get into an area where there is good highway. And if the weather's not good as it approaches totality, they just get into their cars or motorcycles or whatever and keep running to try to get to a place where the sun will pop through the sky.
They'll do anything to get it. You're watching Eclipse 99 on Discovery. We'll take a short break now. I'll be back in just a moment. Join us then.
To commemorate the 60th anniversary of the beginning of World War II, Discovery presents a comprehensive guide to one of the most hard-fought conflicts of our century, World War II week, starting Monday the 23rd of August from 10 on Discovery.
If you spent more time listening to me, watching what's on the blackboard, you'll learn a lot more.
The new Fiat Seicento, be small again.
The man from Del Monte doesn't just pick the perfect fruit, he picks the perfect moment and seals it. Say yes to Del Monte, fruit at its best.
Wherever you live, whether it's down here in Hampshire or up here in Scotland,
you can put the cost of your calls. Use call cable and wireless now. On all 500, 500, 500. Have you got that? You don't need a new phone.
or a new number. And you can keep things like 1471. You know, the last caller service.
They promise they'll bring down your phone bill.
Or they give you double the difference back.
That's double the difference back. That's handy.
Every single month you get 100 minutes of local evening calls.
Our internet time.
Absolutely free.
Free is good.
And that's Lotto!
Any Saturday you can call long distance.
And talk for as long as you like for no more than 50p. Switching to cable and wireless really is so easy.
Just call 0500 500 500 and you could be saving wherever you live.
0% finance and 1 year's free insurance on all Fiat Seicentos. Just call 0800 71 7000.
You're watching Eclipse 99 here on the Discovery Channel. We have witnessed totality in a couple of locations. We got it from the Hercules aircraft, which is flying above the cloud level, just northwest of Britain. We then got it in Cornwall. We then got it in Alderney. It's moved on down through Europe, and we're going to be following it, and you'll be getting that live as it happens, as the programme progresses. It has caused huge excitement here in the UK. I mean, it's almost impossible to overestimate the amount of adrenaline that has been rushing through this country over the last couple of days, and particularly the last couple of hours. You saw some of it on the television there. We'll show you a little bit more as the programme goes on. Now, the last time the eclipse passed over England was early on the morning of June the 29th, 1927. The next time it's going to happen is well into the 21st century. It's going to be something like 2090. So 3 million people last time travelled north to watch, but most, it has to be said, were deeply disappointed because rain and thick clouds ruined the day. Haven't we heard that before? But at Giggleswick School in Yorkshire, the clouds parted at the very last and crucial moment. One woman who saw the whole thing was Veronica Madams, who was then just 15. Now, as dawn broke, she knew something very special was about to happen.
It wasn't until round about, I would say, 7 o'clock that there was a slight darkening in the sky. Although the moon at that time hadn't, the shadow of the moon hadn't started appearing yet. It takes hours. It must have taken, what, 4 hours or so for it to come across. And then we could see really what was happening, and there was absolute silence, because by that time, you can imagine, half the sun's surface obscured, it's darker, and then of course 3/4. And as it came towards the end, I mean, I suppose we were spellbound. Then you saw the real beauty of it, because most of the drawings that you see now, you've got the sun with a shadow on it and a nice, neat golden band round it. But of course then you didn't get a neat golden band. You just got flames, beautiful golden flames, darting in and out. Then you get an eclipse forming of sunshine. And then you realize that, well, the show was nearly over.
Well, 89-year-old Veronica Madams, who saw the 1927 eclipse. Now, Veronica now lives in Cornwall, and just over half an hour ago, she watched her second total solar eclipse from her granddaughter's back garden on Bodmin Moor. Amazing. Now, Joe, your granddaughter lives in Falmouth, doesn't she?
That's right. Little Mirren. She's 3 years old, and when I was down there doing some lectures recently, she came along and I introduced her to the audience, and it was interesting. That very day, there was a newspaper article showing how longevity is increasing, and particularly females are expected to live to be in their 90s, you know, who are children now, the age of 2 and 3. And it occurred to me that in 2090, little Mirren will be 94 years old, so she may see the next eclipse.
Isn't it just sad? It's mind-blowing, isn't it? I think sadly you and I will not.
Yeah, probably not.
Oh, well, unless something really good turns up. Now, joining me now is Lorne Spicer. Now, you're an expert in memorabilia, Lorne. We know about that. And you've collected together a whole lot of memorabilia from the 1927 eclipse. Tell us about what you've got.
Well, these are not, I have to say, the originals, because they won't let them out of the National Railway Museum, understandably. But these are actual posters that you can buy that are prints of the original posters that were done for the mobilisation for the first eclipse in this country. And I just think it's very interesting because it says here, look, your only chance until 1999.
Isn't that wonderful?
You know, and that must have been so sort of inspiring at the time, you know, same as you've just been saying, well, we're not going to see the next one. But the designs of them are really quite stunning. I mean, this one's obviously showing that the compass points of where the eclipse is going to. This is quite interesting because this has no resemblance to the eclipse I've just seen at all.
No clouds.
No, exactly. It's the artist variation.
But giving us an idea, though, I mean, those are not the originals, you say. The originals are in the museum. But how much would one of those be worth if it was on the open market?
If it was on the open market, it would go for at least 1,000 to 1,500. And if you'd sold
Pounds
it...
we're talking
oh,
about.
absolutely.
So double that to dollars.
Yes, of course.
Big
yes,
money.
about 3,500 to 4,000 in dollars. I mean, because basically what you're talking about, these British posters, are you're crossing over lots of different markets versus railway enthusiasts. And of course, if you were going to sell, you'd have sold this year because of the eclipse fever, you know.
Of course, yeah,
quite possible it could go for a lot more than that if you bought the three. I mean, these are the only three designs that were done. So, you know, to come across the three would be quite unusual, and you pay a premium for that.
You've got some ceramic things there. Talk to us about this big one, because this is pretty extraordinary, isn't it? Can you hold that up
Yes,
for us?
this was made by Paul Pottery down in Dorset, and they did this version, which is called a charger because of its size, and also a smaller version, just as a plate. But they've done it very cleverly using firing techniques to recreate this whole area of the diamond and beads. And I mean, I think it's a fantastic example of a souvenir because it's not trying to do something else. It's literally giving you a ceramic interpretation of what, you've just seen.
All right. Those are some of the things that are still here from 1927. What about modern day things that people could hold on to and collect and actually would be worth something in years to come from this eclipse?
Well, there's been a last-minute complete rush, a bit like there has been to the old glasses, which are completely sold out. So now that they're absolutely sold out everywhere, nobody can get hold of any of them today. So I think they're worth holding on to. But, I mean, there's going to be a lot of memorabilia. There are things like first day covers, there's mugs, the standard things, which I personally don't think are very exciting. You need to look for something that's a very small, limited edition size. This is quite bizarre, but features eclipse colours.
What is this exactly?
Well, I'm not really quite sure what its purpose is, except it's got coding underneath, which gives you numbers, and the numbers relate to the alphabet, and it spells out beads and diamonds.
Wow.
So, it's just an obscure piece. I suppose it looks a bit like a moon, I don't really know. And then this is just another charge that's been done. That's an interpretation of the eclipse. People didn't really get their head around the eclipse for doing memorabilia until the last minute. But the key pieces are really those that are on show here, in terms of being low limited edition sizes, if they're going to be worth anything in years to come.
How much would that plate be to buy?
This plate is £155. This large charger, which is my personal favourite, is £100. The smaller version, it doesn't have to be expensive. You can buy the smaller version, and that's about £45. So it's quite good, really, I think. Quite good value for money, especially because once the excitement's gone, that'll be it.
Okay,
and of course,
what
I
is
couldn't resist this. Well, I actually went to see if I could get any glasses, and I couldn't get any glasses, but I came across the eclipse sandwich, which features black bread and white bread. So there's no accounting for people having a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit in amongst things, but I shan't be holding on to this, I don't think.
You are watching Eclipse 99 on the Discovery Channel. Our American viewers now take a short break. We'll see you in a couple of moments. Meanwhile, here in Europe, we can carry on talking about collectibles. These things you were talking about hanging on to, I mean, you don't really mean this. This isn't worth any money, is it?
I do, yes. Because, I mean, what's quite interesting about the first eclipse is there's been photographs in the papers, which most people will probably have seen, of people actually viewing the eclipse through what look like sort of quite primitive versions of these. Now, very few of those survive. I mean, there are a couple of people who've written into papers and said, I have got them. School children were told to look at the eclipse through the bottom of a Marmite jar, which I can't imagine was very good. But, I mean, obviously, things like that, they weren't made for the occasion as such. And basically, although the demand outside the building, just as the eclipse started, was huge, you could have sold these several times over. Now, everybody will throw them away. Been there, seen it and done it. So I think this is a classic thing that's not going to really survive, because they're just very flimsy, made of cardboard, and people just put them in the bin now.
You should rob the bins and then save them for the next eclipse.
Absolutely. But we don't have too many of them to survive.
No, you know what the big one is going to be? People are going to be paying good money for Joe's pinhole camera. In fact, we almost ought to accept bids on email for this, I think. What do you reckon, Joe?
Well, there was a lot of attention when it was outside that people wanted to look in and see the image of the sun.
Lovingly made, lovingly made. We actually lost this a little bit earlier on because some people got it. But so excited were they by the impending eclipse, they stole it from our office outside, and we had a bit of trouble getting it back. Anyway, such is the excitement of the eclipse. How do you feel about taking an email, Joe? What do you think?
Yes, let's go.
We've got a couple of them here. What is the diameter of the moon shadow in the totality then? The answer is it moves, doesn't it?
It changes because the shadow hits the Earth at a different angle. If I had something circular, it hits at one angle, and of course it's going to be large at that time and moving very quickly. And then as the shadow moves towards the local meridian, where the shadow hits the Earth at a right angle, or perpendicular, well, that will happen, by the way, in Romania, very close to Bucharest today. And at that point, the shadow moves at its slowest rate. That's why it's a maximum, because what happens is that the Earth's rotation is a maximum and moving in the same direction as the shadow. So in a sense, it kind of catches up with the shadow a little bit. And at that point, when it's going across the continent, it's about 110 kilometers in diameter. But then as it goes out the other side, it elongates again, and it moves quickly as it goes towards Turkey, Iran, and India.
And then finally disappears.
Yep.
What do you thought about the eclipse? You've only seen a partial bit. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was stunning. I actually did want to go down west for the eclipse. I'm actually quite glad I didn't, seeing as the cloud cover. But, yeah, it's very moving. I mean, I think perhaps also it's helped because this is the millennium year. So, you know, everybody's rather in an anticlimax state about the millennium because they feel it's all hyped and over-commercialised, it's going to be expensive. And the eclipse has really been a great get-out because it's been a chance to actually see something that we have no control over. And it is awe-inspiring, you know, you realise you're just a little blip on the planet, basically, when you see something as magnificent as that.
Quite so. It makes you realise quite how insignificant you are. So, a very warm welcome back to our viewers in America. It's just gone 10 to 7 on the East Coast, and it's still a fairly uncivilised 10 to 4 on the West Coast. You are watching Eclipse 99 on the Discovery Channel. We will be bringing you live the last eclipse of the 20th century. Unparalleled coverage, unparalleled scientific discussion on it. I hope that you will enjoy the programme. Now, Joe, you're an old hand at the eclipse, and I think one of the most spectacular you saw was the one in Baja in California. Now, let's have a look, because this was Joe enjoying the total eclipse 8 years ago.
"10 minutes to T equals 0. People are beginning to take off their straw hats. I certainly don't need mine now. Sunglasses are coming off. Everyone's smiling, looking to the sky as we approach about 90% eclipsed sun. It's an amazing experience to watch this happen. There's a very, very dark, dark sky over in the back where the shadow of the moon will soon be coming. People are taking the Mylar caps off their cameras because it's about to happen. Maximum sensitivity at this point. Crowd is beginning to gather on the beach. I feel like Richard Dreyfuss here in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. We're about to witness something that Spielberg or Disney could never reproduce. It is going to happen in a matter of seconds. The diamond ring is nothing better. Oh my God, it's incredible. Beautiful solar eclipse. We have had it. There it is. It's eclipsed. There's a wonderful corona developing. Mercury has come out. I see Jupiter, Venus in the sky. A complete, total eclipse of the sun has just occurred here in Baja, California. Here comes the diamond ring effect. The eclipse is ending. Nothing more beautiful in nature than what we have just witnessed here in the fastest 6 minutes and 26 seconds of my entire life.
You old softy, you're a scientist, but it really got to you, didn't it?
Well, I guess I lost it a bit there, yes. I mean, no matter how many calculations you make, when it actually happens, the scale and the splendor just gets to you. Because, I mean, one thing that's amazing is just as totality kicks in, the sky becomes transparent instantaneously. And all the planets and the stars immediately come into view when you're standing inside the umbra. That is just as remarkable as seeing the umbra, as seeing the corona itself. The fact that you can see the stars and the planets at one point. And you get Mercury and Venus, which are always close to the sun. They're very, very bright and difficult to see under normal circumstances when you're looking under the telescope. But with the eclipse, they're very close to the sun, of course. And we have maps and so forth of what it should look like when we get a clear view
All
today.
right, well, I think we can go to pictures from Romania right now,
Okay.
because they have just experienced totality there. You can see it. Isn't that extraordinary? Isn't that extraordinary?
Okay.
I mean, you never
just about
tire
disappeared, but
seeing this thing.
we don't see any corona still. Does that mean that's cloudy in Romania? I suppose it does.
Just reached totality there, I think. Is that right?
So this is...
And it's disappeared.
It's becoming that, really what everyone's concept is of an eclipse. You know,
Oh,
the
and
lights
here's
go out.
someone from Romanian television. I must point out we don't have actually any control over what we see. These are feeds that have been directed to us from different television stations throughout Europe. So it's pretty much potluck. I mean, we're getting some great pictures, but you will have to forgive us if occasionally they aren't necessarily what we would choose. We're just kind of picking up what's happening through Europe. And even though some of them might not be directly of the eclipse itself, I think they'll give you a very good idea about what is going on throughout Europe. So, Joe, excitement, thrills, glad to be here, all going well?
What I'm seeing here on this one from Bucharest reminds me of those comical postcards you see. Bucharest during a solar eclipse, and it's completely black. You know, you don't see any detail at all. It's unfortunate, but we got to see one corona today. We're going to be very, very upset.
Absolutely.
So it's still moving across. We missed it in Cornwall. Well, what about Hercules? Is that still flying?
Hercules is still flying, I believe. And, of course, Concorde will have got some amazing pictures.
Yeah.
And I believe we're going to be talking to a reporter who was on board Concorde for that 11 minutes a little bit later on. But I think the extraordinary thing for me, and I don't know whether you would agree with this, Joe, is that even though the pictures have been imperfect to a certain extent, it hasn't taken away from the excitement of the event. It still feels momentous, doesn't it?
Well, it does because the precision, I think, is what gets to people. I was talking to one of the cameramen here, and when we went outside to the eclipse, he said, it's amazing how they can predict that so precisely.
It's extraordinary. Well, we're going to be taking a break now. We will be back in a few minutes. Join us then. Joe will be with us, giving us more detail about the eclipse, more interpretation, more scientific facts about it. Join us in a few minutes.
To commemorate the 60th anniversary of the beginning of World War II, Discovery presents a comprehensive guide to one of the most hard-fought conflicts of our century, World War II week, starting Monday the 23rd of August from 10 on Discovery.
Does your car identify you? If your car is a new Mitsubishi Charisma, it does. Its direct injection petrol engine gives you better performance, greater economy and fewer emissions. Now that's something you don't see every day. The new Mitsubishi Charisma.
I'd like to show you something really clever from Vileda, the new Vileda Super Mop with a special area for cleaning. Hey, and a separate one for drying. The top's reinforced with microfibers that clean. Look, even really stubborn dirt. See how it lifts up the dirt?
And the lower part is really absorbent to dry quickly.
The new Vileda Super Mop with double action now cleans even better.
Kizzy here is cleaning her teeth. She's using a pedigree Dentarask. Dogs can really get their teeth into it. In fact, Dentarask is proven to reduce plaque and tartar, rather like a human toothbrush. Pedigree Dentarask, the treat that acts like a toothbrush.
Good morning, America. I'm Mary Nightingale, and you're watching a special Discovery broadcast, Eclipse 99. We're following live the last total solar eclipse of the millennium. Dr. Joe McAvoy, our eclipse expert, is with me in the studio. He's written a book called Eclipse, and it gives a really good idea about exactly what eclipses mean and what the interpretation is of them here on Earth, scientifically, and also in a slightly wider sense. We'll be talking to Joe a little bit later on. Now, the moon shadow has already passed over Alderney and English Channel, and that's where our reporter Tim Grundy is based. Tim, it was your first eclipse. What were your impressions?
Mind-blowing, really. I was kind of sort of a bit disinterested about it, to be honest. I'd heard so much about it, and yet when it really happened, when the light was just switched off, because it was, the only way you can describe it is that when it went dark, it was switched off, and when it came light again, it was like a dimmer switch. Slowly it came light again. And there is actually, after it, almost a sense of, well, I don't know, there's a hollowness. Everybody has gone, although the sun, I daren't look at it, it's still half in eclipse at the moment, but which was very exciting a couple of hours ago. At the moment, though everybody has left it, they're going. Quite a lot of the little boats are already leaving the harbour. This harbour normally only has about 100 boats. This is Bray, but there are 350 or more boats in there at the moment. There is, though, a huge party going on down in the village, a giant marquee. The beer tent is going, and I know that there's an after-eclipse gala going on this evening.
You're going to be staying there for the entire duration of the day and so on. What else is going to be happening? You've got the gala this evening. What is the feeling like on the island, Tim?
Well, there's a conversation between one another about how was it for you kind of experience. Now, literally, people say, well, what did you think? And there is astonishment. Everybody has been totally astonished by it. The vast majority of the people here have seen it for the first time. There are some, well-heeled veterans. A gentleman I met last night, that was his 13th eclipse, and it was possibly a little disappointing for him because of the cloud cover. But I think for most of us, it was just such a remarkable experience to have the light of the day switched off and then slowly turned back on again, just in the space of a minute.
Tim, we're going to go straight to Romania. We'll be back to you shortly. We have got pictures live from Romania now, which I understand are extremely... There you are. There's your corona, Joe. Talk to us about it.
Yes, well, that is the total eclipse as a textbook version. You can see the corona around the outside of the eclipse sun, and that is the hydrogen ions in the sun's atmosphere, which are it's very, very faint. So that means you've got a very clear sky, quite a clear sky there in order to see it. There it is, beautiful. That's what we've been looking for. And it's only slightly longer in Romania than it is in Cornwall. It's only 2 minutes and 16 seconds or so, but it is the point of the greatest eclipse. That's where the moon shadow is hitting the Earth at a right angle. So it's slightly longer, but
not by much, is it?
Not by much, no. But they're getting the full show there. They got their money's worth in Romania. That is, in fact, the town, I think, where the maximum eclipse precisely occurs. The name of the town, I recognize it.
Look at the darkness there. You can see people standing around.
You can see some people on the ground, and they will have seen more or less what I saw in Baja.
And here it is just emerging from the other side. So what is this? We have now third contact, would you say, or?
That is third contact, yes, and you should be. I don't understand why there's no diamond ring effect right there. Maybe we missed it in that brief moment because it looks like it's developing now. The disk is moving off, and of course this is the time when people have to watch their eyeballs again and make sure they're protected. And they're, you can imagine the concern of the health officers because if you're looking at this thing during totality, here they're celebrating.
Having a drink.
Yes, and there they are, the Romanians.
Fantastic. Look at that. Isn't that great? Everyone's standing around enjoying it. And there we are. There we are. Back to Romanian television again, the Magic's over. We will be following a little bit further as the eclipse actually progresses through. There is that moment of excitement, isn't there? There is that moment of unreality.
No question about it. And part of that, I think someone mentioned earlier that you actually see grown people crying. I mean, I saw that when in Mexico, and I walked around after it was over, and there were people who were just overcome, with emotion. And I think probably what our guests here know a lot about is the feeling that not the insignificance so much, but it's the small part that we are in the whole scheme of nature and the size of the universe. And you realize this when you see the sun blocked out by the moon.
All right, well, Joe, as you say, for some people, the total eclipse is not just a spectacular sight, but it is indeed a sacred event. Now, they are pagans. They see it as the triumph of the female moon over the power of the male sun, and a moment when great energies are released. And my guests are Claire Prout, who's a modern witch, and Emrys, that's his only name, he's a shaman. We're going to be talking to my guests in just a moment, but before we actually hear from them, let's hear from Cassandra Latham, who is based in Cornwall, and she's probably Britain's best-known witch. She explains here why the eclipse is so important to her.
Witches have always lived on the fringes of society. For Cassandra Latham, a Cornish witch, the significance of an eclipse is very different from that of most people.
I'm a village witch in St. Barrion, and it's interesting, in this particular village there has been a long tradition of witchcraft. Even if nowadays you go around and you say, where are you from? Oh, Barrion, you know, ooh, some queer people out there. And say, yes, I know, I'm one of them. In a sense, the figure of a witch is never totally in the community or never totally outcast. She walks that threshold between the two. It's safe to say that, certainly in Western culture, the sun is perceived as a masculine force and the moon as a female force. So it's very interesting that during the day, when the male force is at its strongest, the female force covers the sun. And it's interesting that cover is an old breeding term. So you get the woman on top, actually. As far as I'm concerned, it's a rare and sacred act. Symbolically, the god and goddess are mating. And as far as I'm concerned, this should not be looked upon. The energies released during the point of the eclipse essentially are going to be very potent. I'm very used to working with these energies. And yeah, there's a light side to things, there's dark side to things. If you light a candle, it'll cast a shadow. Darkness doesn't mean evil, it just means you're going deeper into something. It will be a time of great power. How that is exhibited is absolutely up to the individual. So I'm intending to work with a local tribe called the Donga tribe, who are very connected with the land. One of the main things that we're hoping to happen is to have the tribal music going at that time, music being such a good unifier, and it will also link in with that primitive response, and hopefully be able to focus it appropriately so that there will be a reconnection with the energies of the land and the energies of the hearts of the people, because that sadly is what has led to a lot of problems on our planet. It's a brilliant opportunity for healing the planet and ourselves.
Well, that's Cassandra Latham. Claire Prout is a witch, a modern-day witch. Shaman Emrys is shaman, as the name would suggest. What is a shaman? Can you explain?
Yeah, shaman is someone who deals with the insides of a person's personality, their mind, their spirit, their soul.
So you're a doctor, or...?
Yeah. You call me a witch doctor, I guess.
Is that true? I mean, would you be happy with that description?
Well, I get called a witch doctor, and shaman in Africa and places like that, that's what it is, witch doctor.
Is it voodoo? Is it...
No, I'm a contemporary shaman, and we're very practical, sensible people, and we deal with serious energies that are measurable. We talk about prana, which is the universal energy. That's actually what we've just been feeling out in the park there.
And did you feel it?
Oh, yeah. It's like we were meditating, before, during, and after the totality, and it felt like an entire in-breath of fresh air. It was wonderful. Buzzy or what? Yeah.
Claire, you're a witch. What does that mean?
It's fairly similar to Emrys's view of the world. We work with energy. We see the world as made up of energy, and we work with the spirits of the land, the spirits of people, our own spirits. There's another layer of the world that everyone has access to. It's just rather cynically that we've shut it off.
Well, you said cynical, but isn't it logical? There are whole legions of people out there who will be watching and saying, that's rubbish. That's hocus pocus.
Well, that's fine. They're very welcome to believe that. However, there are a growing number of people who see the world in a very traditional way. Across the world, various societies have a remarkable similarity in the way that they see the world. They couldn't have communicated that to each other because the facilities didn't exist. But something in their heart and spirit just knows this. It's fine if people don't want to believe it. we do.
What does the eclipse mean to you, Claire?
Cassandra spoke about male and female. On a less emotive way of looking at things, it's a balancing. You know, the moon is tiny, the sun is huge, and yet the moon can block out the sun. This is remarkable.
I tell you what, it is remarkable. We're just getting pictures from Bucharest. I think we can go to those now, and we can see exactly what is happening there. I'm told it's just gone black. It's just gone black. The clouds have come back in. Couldn't you work some magic on it, for goodness sake?
I was just thinking what Joe was saying earlier about perspective. That's what happened to me while I was out in the park a moment ago. I suddenly became aware of the distance that the sun is from the Earth. It's amazing. You don't normally see that. You need something in between to give you that perspective. And I think everybody else is feeling that too.
You know, the interesting thing about the Earth system is that the moon is the most unusual object. It's much so different than any of the other satellites around other planets because it's so close and so big. And that's the reason why it can block out a body that's as large as the sun. It's 400 times larger. The sun is 400 times larger than the moon. But the moon is so close to us. It causes the tides, and it's responsible for the evolutionary cycle for the amphibian stage. And it probably is the reason why we don't see extraterrestrial life, because no one has a moon like ours. It's an amazing object.
Well, we also argue that, of course, the moon affects your body. Your body's made up of a huge percentage of water. So everybody pulled it a little towards the moon when it comes over. What must it do to you?
I remember when I did some research a while back on the menstrual cycle, the fact that it's tied to the moon, and there's this great fact of the way turtles come in to lay their eggs, you know, with the tides. And the tides occur every 29 days, and if you take an average of the female menstrual cycle, you do get this peak at about 29 days.
And it's no use telling turtles that that's not logical.
Do you think there's something in modern life that means that we reach out for something more than science can give us? Forgive me, Joe. But I mean, you know, we seem to be seeking something more. Call it superstition, call it witchcraft, call it, you know, hocus pocus, whatever you like. But there's a need, isn't there?
It's the human heart, and the human heart needs a little romance, and it responds in a non-logical way. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, we can say it's superstition. It doesn't harm anyone. Where it does start to harm people, then that's a problem. Happily, witchcraft and voodoo and the rest of it don't work like that.
Look, I have a tiny picture of Bucharest on our screen.
It looks like it's...
Can you see it? It is minute. It's a corona zone. It's a small corona, but it's a corona.
Why don't they use a longer lens, for goodness sake? I mean, because it looks like it's perfect.
Science has said, oh, that's the diamond ring.
Yes.
Now, if only Bucharest television would take us in a little bit tighter on that, we could actually see it.
That's a budget-sized diamond ring.
Absolutely. That's less than a carat, I think, isn't it? Fantastic. It is a remarkable event, isn't it?
It's wonderful.
It defies logic.
Well, it doesn't defy it. I think this is rather fun. You were talking earlier about needing something beyond science. This is where science falls flat. You can predict an eclipse to the split second.
Look, I'm sorry to interrupt. What are we seeing here, Joe? Look at that. Isn't that fantastic?
That could be actually a diffraction pattern in the television lens or something. I don't think I've ever seen anything looks like that that's characteristic of the eclipse.
Beautiful though, whatever.
Yes.
We believe in it even if it's just something that came through the camera. We were talking earlier on about people thinking it's the end of the world when eclipses come.
Yes.
And you've had a bit of dealing with this, haven't you?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have indeed. I have to remind people that Nostradamus predicted the end of the world last month, and we're still here, and probably still going to be here in another month or two. It's not the end of the world. You're going to believe what you believe. If you attach portents to this thing, then you will find changes in your life, there's no question about it. But you're making it yourself. It's nothing to do with the moon, it's nothing to do with the sun, it's in your head.
All right, so don't take it too seriously.
Certainly not.
Enjoy it, go with it, but don't let it overtake your life.
Absolutely. It's actually a part of that process of trying to find something beyond life. You know,
Okay.
Sorry?
I'm going to have to stop you now because we're going to take a break, but we'll be back in just a moment. Join us then.
Eclipse 99 brings you the most comprehensive eclipse coverage on TV. Today on Discovery.
Having credit problems? Being refused loans, credit cards, mortgages or mobile phones? For a free information pack to repair your credit rating, call Mercron Credit Services free on 0800 40 50 50. Remember, you could restart your credit by calling 0800 40 50 50 now.
Now there's a remarkable new antiperspirant that's made to give you incredibly strong protection. But this antiperspirant isn't for men. It's designed for women. You see, the surface of a woman's skin can be more alkaline than a man's. This new antiperspirant works in harmony with a woman's body chemistry. It's designed differently. It works effectively. It keeps you incredibly dry. What is this remarkable antiperspirant? Its new secret. More than just strong. As strong as a woman.
There's a new Grattan catalogue. To receive your copy, call 0800 771 772. You'll receive £15 off your first order. And even next day delivery. So share in the fashions of the new autumn-winter season. Call 0800 771 772 now.
To commemorate the 60th anniversary of the beginning of World War II, Discovery presents a comprehensive guide to one of the most hard-fought conflicts of our century, World War II week, starting Monday the 23rd of August from 10 on Discovery.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Mary Nightingale. You're watching Eclipse 99 here on Discovery. We're following live the last total solar eclipse of the century. Dr. Joe McAvoy is one of the world's experts on the eclipse. He's with me in the studio. Now, Joe's just written the definitive book on the eclipse, and we'll be talking about that in just a moment. But now let's return to our eclipse reporter, Tim Grundy, who's in the Channel Islands on the island of Alderney. Over to you, Tim.
And 3 holiday makers with me, 12-year-olds. We've got Stacey, we've got Josephine from Dorset, that's in England for our American viewers, and Adele, who's from Guernsey, another one of the Channel Islands. Now, what were your thoughts when it all happened?
Oh, it was shocking. I thought the world was going to end.
Are you kidding?
No.
Why?
Because it just went so deep back. I thought the world was going to end.
There was also someone let off some sort of pyrotechnics, didn't there? And there was a big bang. Did that worry you?
Yeah. We was walking down there and like me and Adele nearly started crying and Josephine was laughing.
So the two of you thought that was it? The darkness and life and everything, it was all over?
Yeah, I love it.
Once you'd come to grips with it, what did you like best? What was the best bit?
When it went pitch black and then suddenly it came light again. That was really, really good.
The harbour looked nice, don't you think?
Yeah, yeah. With the lights flashing. Yeah, and the cameras.
And what's your lasting impression? What's going to carry on with you? You're not, sadly, I don't think you're going to live to see the next one. I know I'm definitely not going to, but 90-odd years. What's going to stay with you for the rest of your life?
I don't think I don't think I'm going to forget this day. I'm going to keep these eclipse glasses 99 to remind me of the eclipse, what happened.
And they're doing all sorts of commemorative things on the island, aren't they? They're producing some coins.
Yeah, they've got these coins that are in a collectible case, and one's £625.
£625. So you bought half a dozen or so, have you?
Yeah.
And they've got some cheaper ones though, haven't they? Just a couple of quid.
Yeah.
Are you gonna keep some stuff? Maybe pass it on to your grandchildren?
Yeah, I've got some books and glasses and stuff like that. So.
Okay. Now I know you came here just on a holiday, but has it made the holiday extra special for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad that you were here and your friends weren't. You'll be able to tell them all about it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much indeed for joining me, and enjoy the rest of your holiday. Mary, back to you in the studio.
I don't know what to... Right, let's return now to Bucharest. We have totality in Bucharest. Look at those pictures.
Wow.
There's a corona for you, Joe.
That's it. That's the big one. It looks, again, you see that it's got quite a symmetric corona. which would give astronomers some indication of the solar cycle, sunspot cycle on the sun, and I'm sure there are plenty of astronomers taking careful photographs of that with high-powered telescopes. It looks like it's a clear sky.
Now, this is the point where the sky should turn transparent, right?
Yes, indeed.
We should be seeing planets?
Yes, but you don't see it on the television because they're adjusting the sensitivity of the camera to pick up the corona. But I'm sure the viewers there in Bucharest are seeing the map of the sky, you know, with the planets, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn on the western horizon. And yeah, that's a beaut. And again, you see the prominences. You see this little pinkish ring around the outside. You see that? That's a real effect. Yeah. That is not just something that's happening due to the transmission. Here comes the diamond ring effect. That's a beauty, classic. And then that should be followed now by Bailey's beads. It goes in the reverse order of when first contact occurs. Whoops.
Gone black. I think something's happened with the camera. Oh no, here we go, back again.
They got to watch their sensitivity. It's a tricky photograph because the light levels are changing by orders of magnitude, you know, when the sun begins to peek around. I remember the cameraman in Baja having terrific problems trying to constantly readjusting the exposure to get a good image.
And I guess this demonstrates very clearly the damage that you can do to your eyes,
precisely,
right?
Because the light comes back with a vengeance, and you have this ultraviolet and infrared, which are both damaging to the eye, transmitted right through the tissue of the eye, to the retina.
Fascinating.
And now it's back in the partial phase again, and that will continue at a steady rate as it moves. The moon moves across now, and the sun returns. It looks like they must have the pandemonium in Malaysia must have worked. The sun's coming back. The dragon didn't swallow the sun.
Fantastic. Now, you are, of course, watching a special Discovery Channel broadcast, Eclipse 99, live, tracking the eclipse as it moves across Europe right through. So let's have a look at the route that today's eclipse is taking. It started in Cornwall, as we saw, in the southwestern corner of England. It then crossed the English Channel, going over the island of Alderney, where our reporter Tim is. Then it crossed France, Germany, the rest of Europe. We just saw Bucharest. It crossed Romania. We hope to see it next as it crosses Iran, which is the place that Joe said could be the best area to see it. Finally, it moves on to India, where after crossing the sunset line, finally it fades away in the Bay of Bengal. And that's a total time of what, 3 hours? Something.
I think, yeah, two and a half hours. You know, one of the disappointing things about the television coverage is that you can't see the sky. You know, you can't see the planets because they're obviously focusing on what's happening at the edge of the sun. That's what's remarkable about our own vision, you know. As we look, whoops, look at that. Oops,
oh, happening again.
When we look up at the sky, we can adjust our focus and our sensitivity by orders of magnitude and look at certain things that we want. And that transparency of the sky when you're standing in the umbra still remains the most singular, most impressive sight for me when I saw the total eclipse, even more than the corona.
Really? Even more than that? And that was pretty something as well.
Yes, happening at the same time.
Okay, we've got some more emails.
Okay.
Ready for these?
Yep.
The first one I can exclusively reveal is from the McAvoy family. It says, Dear Joe, just a note to tell you that the McAvoys from the USA are watching, and we're very proud of you. And that's from Jimmy, Tina, Stephen, Kelly, Joe, Mum, and Mary. Now, you have something that you've got to say to Mary, am I right?
Yes, she sent me a T-shirt with a picture of the eclipse on the front, and I told her that if we got somewhere along the route, if we got a very good coverage of the corona and so forth, that I would put it on during the program. So it looks like I'm going to have to come through because we did get a very good picture from Romania. So
no escape,
during the next break, I'm afraid I'm going to have to put this T-shirt on.
No escape. Right, okay, we have another email. This one's quite a funny one. It says, Joe, whilst watching the show at 10 o'clock this morning, that was before American viewers joined us, unfortunately, we suggested you use a tube to watch the eclipse in more detail. With the help of the children, we found 4 Pringles tubes, which I have to say did the job brilliantly. Unfortunately, I now have 4 tubes of Pringles to eat, but the vision that we had of this once-in-a-lifetime event was well worth it.
Well done.
We were talking earlier on to the pagans, weren't we, Joe? And we've had another email about this. People in some countries are saying that the world will end today during the eclipse. I mean, what do you make of all this stuff?
Well, I try not to be too cynical about it because one has to be sensitive to other people's feelings and beliefs. And, you know, Nostradamus sort of flunked again last month, as you well know. I think 4th of July or something it was supposed to end. And I think we'll probably be eating our dinner tonight somewhere, Mary, with peace.
So. I hope so. We have an email from Noah in Iowa. He says, if the corona is always there, why is it only viewable during a total eclipse? what makes up the sun's corona? Two questions you can answer either.
Okay, the sun's corona is made up of basically ionized atoms, hydrogen atoms. The sun consists of hydrogen, and what causes the energy from the sun is the fact that hydrogen atoms are fusing together to form tritium, and the radiation that comes off is a result of a nuclear reaction. So it's really ionized helium which has formed the corona. Now, the reason you can't see it under normal circumstances, even though it's there, is because the brightness of the sun is so great that you can't see the more faint image of the corona which is around the sun. So you have this perfect scheme that somebody designed where the moon just comes in and blocks out all that intense radiation in the middle of the sun and leaves you to see the corona. And that's what it looks like they've seen just in Bucharest and unfortunately not in Albany.
Yeah, next time lucky, who knows. All right, Joe, thank you. In the next half hour, we hope to see more live pictures of the eclipse as it goes over Marivan, which is an isolated little town in Iran, quite close to the border with Turkey. But first, let's indulge ourselves and take a look back at some of the impressive images we've seen so far of today's total solar eclipse. These are the pictures as it crossed Cornwall and Albany. Pictures of the eclipse earlier today. They were taken an hour and a half ago with a Hercules plane, which is above the cloud level over southwest England. Now, with me in the studio now is Professor Carl Murray, who's an expert in space exploration. Do you get as excited about the eclipse as the rest of us think, Professor Murray?
Yes, I do. I mean, I know it was only a partial eclipse from London, but coming here in the studio and passing through the sunlight coming through the trees and this pinhole camera effect with multiple images of the crescent sun, it's really quite exciting.
Yeah. Explain to me about that, because I have read about this in books. It actually happens, does it?
Yes, I mean, I'd read it. I've never seen a total eclipse, and I'm envious my colleagues in Albany who have. But I'd read about this effect and thinking, well, yeah, I'd be very lucky to see that. But yes, as I walked along, and of course the hundreds of people around and just walking straight past and not noticing this beautiful effect. So I felt really quite privileged.
We have some pictures live from Romania coming up, which I think we'll be able to have a look at and see how the eclipse is being affected there. You can see people with all their glasses on. And we're getting a view of the sky, no sun so far, live from Romania, as it says. And here we go. Professor Murray, what do you make of that? Oh, there it goes. It's difficult, it seems, to actually capture this on camera. There seem to be problems with aperture and so on.
I think it's lack of experience probably by...
Well, it happens once in a lifetime,
exactly.
Yeah, isn't that wonderful? You can see people really enjoying it and getting into it. So we were talking about the pinhole camera, and you've seen this, obviously, the partial eclipse here in the UK. Have you ever actually witnessed a total eclipse?
No, I decided not to make the journey to Cornwall because of the bad forecast and the prospect of so much cloud cover, but I do intend, and I think maybe a family trip sometime in the future to see it. I think everyone should see one once in their lifetime.
I agree. I must say I've been inspired by this. Joe's wearing his eclipse t-shirt now, by the way. As promised to Mary, because you saw a corona. Here you go. He's wearing it.
So I had to come through with my promise. So in New Jersey, they're having a big laugh now as I sit here with this.
A committed umbrophile. Okay. Are you happy to take some emails? Because we've got some interesting questions. Okay. John Erdkamp in Colorado says, I viewed and photographed the July 91 Mexico eclipse. I noticed how pointed the corona looked. I thought it might be a camera problem, but this also occurred in other people's photos. What makes the corona pointed or round? Is it real, or is it a result of the photographic process? Do you know?
I'm not an expert on the photography side of things or even the actual nature of the corona, but sorry.
No, I'm just pointing to Bucharest there. Look at that, isn't that beautiful?
Yes,
we can take the pictures of that. Yes, talk to us about that.
Well, these are these giant ejections coming out of the sun, which again can only see this beautiful effect that you've got the moon exactly the right size, and you see these things. I mean, even the spacecraft observations find it very difficult to see these because they deliberately blot out a larger area of the sun, so it's extremely difficult to see it with any other way. Beautiful effect.
Amazing. We have another email here. Craig from the US says, will the eclipse create any interesting gravitational events on Earth?
I don't believe so. There was a claim by a Nobel Prize winner that there were sort of interesting effects observed on a pendulum. Unfortunately, he wasn't a Nobel Prize winner in physics. He was an economist. But people in NASA are taking it seriously, and an experiment is actually being done during the eclipse to test it. So, but I personally don't believe there's anything to observe.
All right. Hans from Austria says, how far ahead can the path of the moon and other eclipses be predicted? I mean, Joe, we know about this, don't we, because they have been predicted throughout history, but how do you actually predict it?
Well, it comes out of Newton's theory. You have a couple of rather simple equations, really. Just Newton's theory of gravitation and an equation for the motion of the planets, which go back even to Kepler, the elliptical paths of planets. And they can be predicted for any date in the future. It's just simply a case, beautiful diamond ring here. Is this from Romania, do you know?
I believe this is Bucharest.
Bucharest. I mean, these prominences are remarkable. I think that's probably going to be the big news of this eclipse, because I've never seen it quite so pronounced. The prominence is visible. And a lot of times it has to do with the fact that you get this perfect fit, you know, the moon and the sun. Sometimes the moon can be too large and block out the prominences.
Yeah. The interesting thing to me, and I don't know whether other viewers would agree, but I thought an eclipse was an eclipse, end of story.
We didn't have all these extra features?
Well, I just thought an eclipse was much like any other eclipse. Is that not the case?
Oh, no, not at all. There are variations. One variation, as I said, is that the moon is not always the same size as seen from the Earth because of the shape of the orbit. The elliptical orbit gets larger and smaller. And there are charts where you can actually say, you know, what percentage of the moon, of the sun's disk is the moon? And that can vary anywhere from 92% to 110%. And when it's just about close to 100, that's when you get the best fit. And I reckon, even though I haven't looked it up, I think it's probably the case today, because you're getting these very, very significant prominences visible on the television.
They are extraordinary. Carl Murray, Charleston, Pennsylvania asks, are there any satellites in orbit that can send back visible pictures of the moon's shadow racing across the Earth's surface?
Yes, basically, yes. There are lots of weather satellites up there, and a lot of them you can actually see on the web live. Because you can see the moon's shadow, and you can see it moving across the face of the Earth. Yeah.
Would it look dramatic in the same sense that we experience it here?
No, you tend to just see a sort of hazy, shadowy area with sort of slightly, which is the whole partial eclipse area, and then a sort of a darker central bit. It's not as spectacular. You don't get the sort of spectacular resolution that you expect to see. But these are basically weather satellites looking at cloud patterns and so on the surface of the Earth.
This is your great speciality, isn't it? Putting